Richard, I've got to rip up the script. And what is so important here is right now, trust is shattered across all of digital Europe with this Wirecard fiasco. This is a perfect example of where you have to earn trust or it gets shattered. How do they earn back the trust in digital Europe?
Look, Tom, I think that our study is important because it basically says that brands have a predominant role in establishing trust for business. In fact, 2/3 of consumers say that they'll buy or boycott a brand based on whether the brand speaks up and stands up on racism and also on protecting them from COVID. And by 4 to 1, they'll give more trust to a brand that does speak up. That's a complete change from before, when brands were supposed to tell you about nice things and make you happy. And now today, people want the real story.
What is the to-do? How does Richard Edelman advise firms locked in a past, and yes, it's changed, what is the to-do to begin to establish that kind of trust across Black Lives Matters, across the African-American experience in America?
Tom, the first step is fix history. So whether you're Cream of Wheat or Uncle Ben's or whatever, you've got to update on the basis of today. You can't have packaging and branding that reflects something from 1890. That's just completely old stuff and not going to work. Then you have to actually make sure that your house is in order. You have to make certain that you have Blacks, Hispanics, et cetera, that reflect in numbers the proportions of the U.S. and by the way, in Europe as well. And then third, you've got to be willing to step into the conversation, to stand up and speak up. So, for example, Dove over the weekend for its men's brand ran a lovely piece on the number of Black men who aren't able to celebrate Father's Day because they're in prison, and the necessity of reconsidering the means by which people get put there. So, that's new, that's important, because it makes the brand relevant for today.
I mean, it's important, Richard, but if we're going to do some meaningful changes, is the only way to incentivize chief executives across the board to link their pay to actually the number of representation of diversity that they're having their staff and on their boards?
That's an interesting idea. But again, I just want to go back to, this is a big incentive for brands and for companies to wake up to the reality that their products will only be bought or boycotted if, in fact, they do stand up and speak up. We have today a new phenomenon of belief-driven buying. It's brand democracy. And that means that people use their wallets to reflect their views. And their views are, as this is especially true of millennials and women, by the way, it is clear that they want brands to stand for them, because brands in a certain way have more power than any individual. And so collectively, people are forcing the brand to move in a direction that they believe is going to change the world. And that is a big news for business.
Richard, I'm rarely a skeptic, but the concern is that you have a nice spot on TV, or you have a nice PR exercise, or you post a black square on Instagram, and then the company doesn't change. To make an informed decision, how do we get the data? How much transparency do companies have to show consumers about what they're doing concretely, instead of just the happy talk?
So, in fact, again, this is a new thing for business. People will buy brands based on your treatment of your employees. Are you protecting them with PPE in a return to work situation for COVID? Are you setting up a new standard for how you set up your restaurants, et cetera, to protect the workers? The aspect is that brands are the new corporations. That's how people feel that they can effect change. And the consumer is pushing business to reflect this new reality.